Hey, Witches of the Moon, it is just Spellbound here, your Wednesday hostess, and this week we got to pick our own topics. So I struggled a little bit. I think I say that every week. I struggled. Okay, I couldn't pick a topic, so it was between almost like a response. I don't know if anybody else watches Katie Flowers, but she was talking about being in a tarot rut and how she deals with it and what she does. So I love the idea of talking about a tarot rut, but because we are a witchcraft page and not necessarily a tarot page, I decided not to do that topic, but I am going to talk about Samhain because Samhain is coming. Now, I know not all witches follow the wheel of the year, but I do. So I'm gonna try and stop saying that. It's late for me. It's like 9 o'clock. Um, Sorry. So we're gonna talk about Samhain, and I'm just gonna tell you about things that I do, the types of ritual I do, and how I include my kids because I feel like that is such right. As witches, we love Halloween. It's spooky. It's a really great month, the month of October, of doing any kind of shadow work. It's really a good time for divination and contacting ancestors or loved ones who have passed away. And there's so much depth to the month of October and how we can celebrate the season of moving into winter and it's just all of these really amazing energies that are kind of converging in October. So, like I said, I figured I would talk about, I'm sorry, excuse my band-aid. I figured I would talk about how I like to celebrate the season, and some of it's very mundane and it's easy and everybody can do it. And maybe you'll feel a little bit inspired just to add a little bit of witchcraft into your everyday life because realistically and honestly, I think that's what it's all about. And maybe if I feel like I haven't rambled for too long, I will touch on tarot as well at the end. Okay, so in the month of October, for me, I love really being able to dig in and celebrate and honor the people that I love that have passed away. And for me, there are two different things: loved ones who have passed away and ancestors. Ancestors, I feel like it takes generations to get to being an ancestor. Whereas my loved ones who have passed away are immediate family: my mother, my father, my grandfather, one of my very best friends. So I really like using the month of October as the month where I really dedicate a lot of time to saying a lot of prayers and dedications and leaving out offerings of what I know they liked and kind of making this spiritual pathway so that as we draw near to Samhain, that I have somewhat built a foundation of contacting. And now I'm not saying I try to contact my mom or, I try to go where my feelings are leading me. So I like to take the month as a way of remembrance, as a month of remembrance. Even though I obviously, those were 4 very big people in my life, and I always remember them, and I'm always saying little prayers to them and things like that. But this month, I feel like I really like to dig down deep with that. I know that one of the one of the things that I've read that people do, I think they're called dummy dinners or something like that. Silent suppers. I don't know. I don't necessarily practice it in that way, where you would set a plate out for the people who you have lost, for your family members who are no longer there. I live in a very small house now, and my table literally just accommodates me and my children. I do not have the room to set up 4 extra places. So what I do is on my ancestor altar, I will lay out one plate. And then I will lay out one thing specific to each person, and then an overall candle to have lit. If I have the time, I have animals, I have small children, so realistically, leaving a candle lit is not that much of an option for me. I'm sorry, I keep touching the screen, it keeps going dark. So what I try to do is show gratitude in other ways. So I do like to have one candle going, especially at night. It's a way of them, in hopes of being guided to the light. So I have, I'm sorry, paint's over here. I have my own way of really honoring the bond that I had with my loved ones who have passed on, and I think it makes Samhain feel all that more exciting, and it adds so much to my day to day. But at the same time, it's nice. It's nice when we're not living. This is gonna sound crazy, but I feel like you can't live in death. I can't live in the death of my parents. I can't live in the death of my best friend. I can't live in the death of my grandfather. So I enjoy honoring, and I enjoy really making it a good month for remembrance and being able to express that freely, because I feel like grief is a very strange thing, and I kind of went through it back to back on a whole bunch of different levels, and you can't live there. You can go there, you can visit there, you can stay there for a little while, and then you have to come back. So I really like this time of year to be able to do that and not feel guilty that I am. It's part of my practice. It's part of my spiritual belief system that this is the time for honoring those people. I think I went off on a tangent on that. So, okay. So that's that small section of what I do. And I think that everything else that I do pretty much revolves around that. So I like to do a lot of baking, which everybody does, right? It's like October hits, and it's pies, and it's, all these wonderful things gearing up. So I like to do a lot of baking, and I like to do a lot of baking with apples, because apples are the fruit of knowledge. They are, in my opinion, a fruit. They talk about it, even though, I'm not I don't follow the Bible. I have read it. I don't follow it anymore. But in my mind, the apple is so symbolic of ancestry, because that's what Eve ate. So it's such a powerful fruit that I like to slice them up. So you slice them in a way where you can get the little pentagram in the center, the little star in the center, and then dry them up. And you could dry them in, you can add some cinnamon on top of them before you dry them, and the house will start to smell nice. You can like to dehydrate them. So it's at like 200 degrees until you feel like they're crispy. This is if you have a couple of hours. It doesn't happen in 10 minutes. And then I like to use it and string garland up, and in between I'll put acorns, because acorns are for protection. So I enjoy doing that. And that's something I do with my kids, and it makes it fun for them. And then we always make an apple pie, because I always buy enough apples to make apple pie afterwards. So, or I cheat and I use canned apples if I don't have enough, because I typically have canned apples. So I enjoy doing that. I like making a dark honey wheat bread. It's just wheat we're coming into the dark time of the year, so we're not coming into it. I think we're really in it. We're in the beginnings of it. So a dark honey bread is really, really nice with some soup, getting ready for the chilly weather, at least where I am. It is going to start getting fall-like now. And then so I do a lot of baking, a lot of, I'll harvest as many plants as I can from outside and bring them in for the winter if I can. If not, I will just try to, I keep saying, I will take everything off of them. I will harvest all of the leaves on my herbs if I can't bring them in. And then, so skipping through all of this, and let's really get down to the meat of it, I guess, which is Samhain. So for Samhain, I take so long to write out rituals and incenses, and I think Samhain is the one time of the year where I really just go nuts and let my witch flag, my witchy brain take over. I am looking up every correspondence. I want to know everything. So, but my favorite, and it's kind of been my staple, it's more of my divination blend, but because of the time of year, I feel like that fits. I love to use a combination of jasmine and cedar. It is jasmine, cedar, and bay, I feel like are my go-to incense. Because it is protection, it is psychic awareness, it is, I feel like cedar is such a great wood for ancestor work, and I have a white birch that I try to, that I've harvested the bark from because I have a bunch of white birch on my property. I'm sorry, it's a long day. So those are typically what I will use, and like I said, that's kind of been my go-to for a while. I was thinking about trying a couple new blends, and I can go through them as we get closer to Samhain, but I think that, and we'll talk about spell crafting, I think, in a week or two. I think. I know it's coming up, so really being able to make that connection in your ritual and going with your gut instead of looking up at, I love to look up correspondences. I don't remember them ever. So I'm constantly, I'm looking over there because my books are now over there. I'm constantly having to go back to reference books because I remember the ones that I use most often, and the rest kind of just go to the wayside. And then as I'm coming up with more blends or doing more things, I then will break out those books and sit and make notes and write things down in my journals. I have a ton of journals that, books of shadows. I'm not crazy about that term. So, but I have a ton of journals that I keep as far as my magical workings go. And it's fun to go back and look and go, okay, well, I used that this year and let me try that again. Maybe it'll help this year. Maybe I can add this to it. Always try to write down what you're doing because it's fun to look back. It's fun to be able to go back through the process that you had already done previously. I'm getting distracted now, guys. Okay. So really, and if you are lucky enough not to have somebody who you've lost that has been a close friend or family member, really dig in deep to working with your ancestors, whether it's through tarot, through prayer, through meditation. There's a ton of great guided meditations on YouTube for connecting with your ancestors, and really just use the month of October as a way of building your psychic abilities if you're interested in doing that. And as shadow work time, there's and for my kids, what I try to do, because my daughters have grown up with me, my little one's only 3, so she's still growing up with me, and my older one's 13, but she is old enough to remember things and know my traditions and know kind of what spiritually I am all about. So for my kids, when it comes to Samhain, aside from trick-or-treating and doing all of that, I really try to include them in my my honoring of my family members and my friend, because they are also their family members, and my friend was my older daughter's godmother. So yes, she was baptized. But she was a very dear friend in that I feel like that even though I don't follow that tradition, and even though it was done to kind of appease family, I feel like that that act of asking her to be the godmother and having her participate in this religious rite of essentially becoming part of our family, I took very seriously. And so for my kids, it's good because my kids then get to see pictures. My little ones never met my mom or my dad or my grandfather, my best friend. So I think that doing that with them keeps the memory of them as somebody who should be honored. And I think that's really important to teach. For me as a parent, it's important for me to teach my kids to honor the elders of your family, to honor the people who have had direct impact on you one way or the other. And my family members, of course, have had a direct impact because of me. So I think that it's really important to talk about those things with your kids and to include them in as much as possible. Now, when you do, I'll have my kids be a part of the beginning half of my ritual, and then the second half I will do alone. So the first part of my ritual with lighting the candles and setting things up and saying the prayer, the opening of the circle, and giving thanks and asking for protection and guidance from the people who've passed on. They'll be a part of that, and then I'll close circle and we'll finish up there, and then I will do a few more, have a little bit more time on my own to do my own honoring of my family. So and then do the fun stuff. There was a reason people carved pumpkins there, and all of that can be so magical, being done with your kids. If you have children, if don't, then enjoy the day and hand out candy because we'll be out there. But I think that if there's anything that I can press home about spirituality, I don't know why I made the face, about spirituality and the way that your practice builds and grows, it is really just taking in the nuances of the time of year, of the day. And it doesn't have to be this grand, extraordinary gesture. It's nice to do. Samhain is going to be a big, extraordinary gesture because that's a holiday for me. That's a Sabbath for me that I fully immerse myself in because of how many of my relatives and close family that are on the other side. So I feel like that is the time for me to, like I said, give myself into the grief for a little while and kind of hone in on that. So doing the carving of the pumpkins, the decorating, the blessings, because I try to, during Samhain, during the month of October, it doesn't necessarily have to be on Samhain. I like to do a blessing of the land before the winter hits. A way of thanking the land for harvest and a beautiful summer, and a way, again, of honoring the ancestors of the land as well as my blood. So my kids will all take part in that of putting together special blends. We will leave, this year we're going to be doing two. I'm hoping to get them done this month, but if I don't, I don't. I want to build some owl boxes because we have a lot of owls out here. So I would love to build owl boxes to give them somewhere to stay warm in the winter. So that will be fun. So that's another cool activity. Doing bird feeders, even at this time of year, is still really great. A way of connecting them, I think, to the land and the energies of the animals around you. As we move through the wheel of it being fall and then into winter, I think this is a great time to prep for the winter as far as your magical practice aside from the holiday of Samhain. So that's what I like to do. I'll put up corn, and decoration in itself is a way, in my mind, it's almost a ritual in itself because you're still honoring the time. It doesn't always have to be so serious and so stick in the mud of ritual and very traditional witchcraft anyway. In my mind, everything can be magical. In my mind, in my opinion, if you put magical energy into something, if you're putting energy into something, therein lies the magic. So I really take that to heart, and I really try to have purpose with everything that I do. And, that's just how I like to do what I do. For the month of October, I will also let my children do daily pulls of an oracle deck of their choosing. My little one is a Pisces, and she, I'd been given the Jasmine, I don't remember her name. How awful of me. Jasmine Beckett Smith. Griffin Smith. She makes the tarot and the oracle with the characters. They have like these huge, beautiful eyes, and I'm sorry, I'm looking to see if I have my deck over here. So I'm looking around, I'm sorry. But my friend had given me the mermaid deck. And no, it's not in here. And I did not connect with it at all. Okay, she did beautiful creatures. Now, I love, ridiculously love my beautiful creatures deck. I don't know what it is. They are like little, I just love them. So because of that, my friend bought me the mermaid oracle deck that she has, and I immediately disliked it. But my little one who loves her mermaids, who loves the water, that's her deck. She loves it. She loves to look through it. So during that time, we'll go through, we'll play, we'll take them out, we'll look at them. Her being around cards is not new because I love my tarot. So I'll try and do things like that with them, but I also try to be very careful about what, as far as tarot is concerned. I try to be very careful when I do it and make sure I have proper protections. That's the one time that I really go full force with making sure that everything is protected, is when it comes to my kids. Because kids are so they're like little magnets, aren't they? They pick up on everything, and I would never want my kids to be disrupted by anything negative in the spiritual sense. So I think that, that's one thing that I really enjoy doing with them, and that we enjoy doing together under the right circumstances. What else? Okay, so we'll talk tarot for a few minutes because tarot is my love. So because I was talking about shadow work and doing all of these things, I have been really, really digging into Women Who Run with the Wolves. I'm sorry, I keep looking around because I've just switched up rooms. I actually moved all of my stuff into another room, and I'm kind of like feeling a little bit lost in the sauce still. I am working through Women Who Run with the Wolves, and throughout that book, I have been creating tarot spreads for shadow work as I've been going through it. So the idea is that when I am done with the book, I will have a bunch of tarot spreads to work through and do and journal about through the month of October. Since we're already in October, I have to hustle, but hopefully by the end of October, because I think that book is something so wonderful and so potent as far as looking into our psyche and being able to acknowledge things that make us uncomfortable and finding lost pieces of ourselves. So that's what I'm doing. So while because I'm working through that, I'm sorry, I am looking around because it's going to make me insane. So I know I've probably said it more than once. I know on my own channel, I like gushed about the El Goliath deck, because that deck just kind of hits me where it counts. Let me look. 2 seconds. I'm sorry. Okay. No, this is what happens. So I don't know if you can see her. She obviously is nowhere near done. But she's going to be my Baba Yaga. Because that's what I read in that book. I've gotten further than that now. But at the time I felt pretty inspired. So there's all kinds of stuff. I'm sorry, I was moving this room. So I am going to be using 3 decks for the month of October, and 3 decks that I am very well acquainted with. They are not new. They are like good friends. So I obviously trimmed this deck, but it's still, I don't know if I'm holding them up where you can see them. If they're backwards, I have no idea, and I'm sorry about it. But so this deck is, I mean, look at that devil card. Who doesn't, I mean, when I'm shadow working and when I'm doing things that are ugly and not fun and, moments of just pure, uncomfortable, harsh. And this deck gives you all of those things in a really tender and guiding way. So I really love this deck. Another deck that I am going to be using, like I said, old friends, these decks. I mean, the El Goliath is still new to my collection, but I love this deck. The other deck I'm going to be using is my Wildwood Tarot. And this one specifically because when my mother passed away of a brain tumor, she had cancer. So one of the times that she was in the hospital early on, I think I was still a senior in high school, I went to the Barnes & Nobles because the hospital was right around the corner and I needed a break. And I went to the Barnes & Nobles and I bought this deck. So this deck for me, and I learned it and played with it while my mom, for those couple of weeks my mom was in the hospital, or the couple of days that my mom was in the hospital. So that one has just a really sweet connection for me for loved ones. And then the other one I'm going to be using, and this is just purely because I love this deck, and I have not picked it up in a while because, I got the new Lightseers Tarot, and I am obsessed with it. But I'm not going to use it throughout the month of October. I'm just not. I've got my cards right here. So this is my Londa Tarot. Let's see. Figures. the tower. But the Londa Tarot was not this particular deck, but the Londa Tarot in general was the very first tarot I ever owned. So when I moved to this house that I'm in now, when I moved out of college, when I was done in college and I was starting life, I have no idea what happened to this deck. And so many people were saying to me, oh, well, that's the way it is. When the tarot's done with you, it moves on. And I wasn't having it. I wasn't having it. So I waited years and years and years. And then I just bought them again a couple of months ago. So it is truly meeting an old friend new again. And I love these guys. Like, who doesn't love that guy? I love that guy. Just the characters on them just scream like Tim Burton-esque to me. And so those are the three that I'll be using. But, to get back on topic, sorry, I get a little distracted when talking tarot. But for Samhain, look at what's around you for the season. If you're having a hard time, or if you're learning correspondences, or if you're just starting out in your practice, I think the easiest thing to do is look at what they're selling in the grocery stores, right? It's squashes and pumpkins and cinnamon and apples and all of these wonderful fall foods. And it's such a great way to draw inspiration just by looking around your local grocery store and seeing what's in season. I think that is a really easy way of getting inspired and maybe learning something new. So I'm sorry if I'm rambling. I'm sorry if I did not give you anything of significance today, but I will be back next week, and I hope you all have a very blessed Wednesday. All right, you guys, blessed be.